morning and welcome to Cedar Lane. I'm Dayna, your intern minister, and my pronouns are she, her.
Buenos días y bienvenidos. I'm the Reverend Katie Romano Griffin. Yo soy una pastora aquí. I'm one of the ministers here, and my pronouns are she and ella.
Our words of welcome are filled with our deepest aspirations and call us to embody beloved community. As we say responsively, you are welcome here.
Whether you are joining us for the first time or whether you've been a member since our founding in 1951, you are welcome here. Whatever your gender identity and expression, beliefs, or immigration status, you are welcome here. However you arrived at this beloved place, whether it is in person or online, you are welcome here.
If you're joining us for the first time today, please raise your hand if you are comfortable and willing, so our greeters can offer you a welcome gift and a brochure that talks about Cedar Lane. It also provides a place for you to share your information with us. Let us offer our guests a warm Cedar Lane welcome.
I'd like to draw your attention to the announcements page, which was right next to your orders of celebration. There are some wonderful things that are happening here today, like our very first Social Sunday. There's all kinds of social groups that you'll find out in the lounge with things like hiking and journey women and the men's group and so much more. So I hope you'll visit those tables during the lounge and check your insert as well as our online web calendar for the many different ways that you can be engaged with Cedar Lane and have your life enriched by Cedar Lane.
Our annual pledge drive is in its third week, and our generosity team is committed to putting the fun back in fundraising. So stop by the pledge table in the lounge after the service and pick up a pledge card. If you make a pledge today, you'll get a coupon to redeem at the youth group table for a free donut or bagel. If you're not ready to make your pledge today, you can stop by anyway and pick up a pledge card.
Our pastoral visitor today is Bob Harrison. Bob will be available to support you if you have a joy or a sorrow on your heart. Let us turn now and greet our neighbors, especially our new friends. Good morning. Good to see you. Yay for black, right? Because it doesn't show. Good morning. You all sounded so great today. Good morning. Good to see you. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, Spirit drawn near.
Please don't hesitate. A little love in your heart, and the world will be a better place. You know the world will be a better place for you and me. You just wait and see. heart, and the world will be a better place. You know the world will be a better place
For you,
and me. You just wait and see. Put a little love in your heart. Put a little love in your heart. Put a little love in your heart. A little love in your heart. A little love in your heart. Take a good look around, and if you're looking down, put a little love in your heart. I hope when you decide kindness will be your guide, put a little love in your heart. And the world will be a better place. You know the world will be a better place
for you,
and me. You just wait and see. Put a little love in your heart. Put a little love in your heart. Put a little love in your heart. A little love in your heart. A little love in your heart. Put a little love in. Put a little love in. Put a little love in your heart.
Thank you. That was wonderful. And I invite you all to put a little love in your hearts for Sarah Davidson, our Director of Communications and Membership Engagement. Just take it all in. Take it all in. Thank you. Aw. Thank you. Sarah's been with Cedar Lane for almost 8 years. Sarah began as an admin and has stayed with Cedar Lane through all kinds of change and transitions, continued to learn and expand her skill set and deepen her commitment in a way that is truly rare in institutions today. She's been the voice on the phone when you were sick, checking in on you, not because it was in her role, but because she cares. You've been with her through becoming a mother and having 2 of the most adorable, most photogenic 4-year-olds like ever. If you follow her on Facebook and Instagram, you see their adorableness. And Sarah will be moving on as of March 13th. But we are grateful for the gifts and the skills that you've brought, that you've honed, and there's a few ways that you can express your gratitude to Sarah. We have out in the lounge, there are fish, and you can write wishes for Sarah on the fish. And we also invite you, if you'd like to give a monetary gift in honor of Sarah's many years of dedication and ministry, and make no mistake, she has done ministry here. You may do so by writing a check to Cedar Lane and just put gift for Sarah in the memo line. I don't know if I can ever express enough gratitude for all that you've brought and all that you do and all that you are. I'm just really grateful for you. So thank you. And I know you have a few words you want to share.
All right. I thought I would take a few minutes and figure out what I would say this second go around during second service, but I didn't do that. And I don't like goodbyes, and I care about you all so much, and just looking around the room is kind of tough. Like, I want to do it because I want to have this moment looking at you, but I know that my odds of crying are going up if I do that. The easiest way, the quickest way to put it is that I love this place and its people, and thank you for the gifts you've given me and for the way that I've been formed here personally and professionally. I'll always have that, and I am deeply, deeply grateful for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our church exists to proclaim the gospel that each human being is infinitely precious, that the meaning of our lives lies hidden in our interactions with each other. We wish to be a church where we encounter each other with wonder, appreciation, and expectation, where we call out of each other strengths that we never knew we had. Come, let us worship.
I'm Fran Flieger, your worship associate for today. And as the DeRamio family comes forward to kindle the chalice, symbol of our faith and our gathered community, please rise in body and or in spirit to share in unison the chalice lighting words that are on the screen. We light this chalice with gratitude for the gifts of all generations. We affirm that everyone's faith is formed in our community. We know that faith formation is all that we do, and everything we teach is Unitarian Universalism. We engage in the work of becoming, using the congregation as the curriculum. And please remain standing as we light into hymn number 1012, When I Am Frightened.
For me, when I'm uncertain, will you hold my hand? Will you be strong for me? Sing to me quietly. Will you share some of your stories with me? If you will show me compassion, then I may learn to care as you do. Then I may learn to care. When I am angry, will you still embrace me? When I am thoughtless, will you understand? Will you believe in me? Stand by me willingly. Will you share some of your questions with me? If you will show me acceptance, then I may learn to give as you do. Then I may learn to give. When I am troubled, will you listen to me? When I am lonely, will you be my friend? Will you be there for me? Comfort me tenderly. Will you share some of your feelings with me? If you will show me commitment, then I may learn to love as you do. Then I may learn to love.
So who here has ever woven on a loom before? All right, we got some hands. So the first time I ever used a loom, I was in elementary school. So I was born in Indianapolis, Indiana, and lived there until I began the 5th grade. And every year, my elementary school had something called Pioneer Week, because Indiana. The first time I ever used a loom was during one of those Pioneer Weeks. I remember being amazed at how huge the loom was at first, and then mesmerized when I watched an expert weaver create a tapestry that showed a beautiful landscape from just a bunch of yarn. Well, weaving a tapestry is one of our most common and beloved metaphors within Unitarian, Universalist religious education work. Our current version of the UUA curriculum is called Tapestry of Faith, and here in June, our beloved June Tapestry program is a religious education event for all ages. So why is tapestry such a strong metaphor for religious education and faith development? Well, each ribbon in a tapestry is different, just like we're all different. A tapestry uses many pieces of ribbon or string or yarn and weaves them together to form something greater than its parts, something beautiful. And when we come together to form a tight-knit community, pun intended, something beautiful emerges from our individual parts. Faith development is a lot like a tapestry too. Think of each component of your religious beliefs as a ribbon. I bet some ribbons have the same color because they come from the same source. You might find yourself particularly drawn to a particular religious tradition. And I bet a lot of you would have multicolored ribbons as you draw your personal religious values from a wide range of sources. In the end, it's up to us to weave these different religious beliefs into one fabric, one tapestry that is our own personal belief system. So today, we are going to weave a tapestry together that shows who we are as a church community. Now, hopefully, each of you got a ribbon on the way in. If you did not, no worries, just kind of raise your hand and our ushers will have some extra ribbon to walk around with. And there are some pens. If you didn't get a pen, please share a pen, okay? And on these ribbons, we want you to answer the question in like a sentence or less, preferably in the center of the ribbon. What does Cedar Lane mean to you? What does Cedar Lane mean to you? So take a minute or so to think about it, and then write that down in the center of your ribbon. And then once you're done, check around and see if anyone else might need some help with their ribbon too. And once we're done, the ushers will collect the ribbon, and during our service, our tapestry will begin to be woven by our volunteer weavers, Susan and Muriel. While we write our What Cedar Lane Means to You, Jasmine will play us a nice meditative tune. Jasmine? As you finish, our ushers will be passing baskets to place your ribbon in. Your ribbon and your pens. May the beautiful tapestry of Cedar Lane continue. And now that we've had a beautiful metaphor for religious education, it's time for religious education classes to begin. So please rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing hymn 1053. We will sing it all together once, and then our children, youth, and teachers will head on out to classes while the congregation continues to sing.
Anything less than beautiful. How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
We gather each week not for our needs alone, but to bear witness to our joys and triumphs, our sorrows and disappointments. We come together as companions on this life's journey. In this circle of caring, our hearts are with those whose primary spiritual practice is parenting. We hold in our hearts those who are mourning a loss, those who live with grief or chronic pain, illnesses seen and unseen, mental illness, or addiction. Within our Cedar Lane community, we hold the many complexities of life, the joys of new life, new jobs, and new abundance expanding into the hearts of those we journey with. And we also hold the complexities of the losses, the lost job, the illness, the diagnosis, the beloved family member now gone. And our caring extends beyond Cedar Lane to all those whose lives are lost or impacted by calamities and violence in the world. And having returned from a retreat with the other UU military chaplains, most of whom are active duty, I invite us also to hold these beloved members of our faith who are across the globe holding space for hope in all of the places that we dream our hope and ethics can be. Let us hold them in our hearts today as well. In a moment, we will bring this all into silence, and I invite those who are grieving the loss of a loved one or commemorating the anniversary of a loss to please rise in body or spirit as we hold the silence together. Spirit of life and love, great maker of ways, that moves in, as, and through all things, that is breathing us in this very moment. Continue to expand our minds and our hearts as our lungs expand. And as they contract, may we share with the world around us some of that life-giving oxygen that we have breathed in. May we share with others food that will nurture them as well, and may we all be fed and lifted. May it be so. Amen. You may be seated. We have some words of affirmation and inspiration from two of our congregants, Stephanie Williams and Peter Fenn. Let us be inspired by their words.
I think Cedar Lane is important to me primarily because it puts my life in perspective in the world that I live in. I feel that it takes a lot of my passions and gives them more of a purpose. I love participating in RE, and I like taking some of the social justice initiatives that we have here and really being able to put myself into them. There's so many different small communities that anything that I could think of that I wanted to do, there's people here that I know and love will support me doing that specific thing and will love that I'm interested in other things as well. In a lot of other communities, it's you're either into this thing or you're not, and that's the qualifier. And here I can grow and explore and change the things that I'm passionate about and continue going forward with them. And the people here love me every step of that process, and that means the world.
Well, as a grandson of a Unitarian minister and a great-grandson of a Unitarian minister who actually was dean of the Harvard Divinity School, if I didn't join a Unitarian church, I was in deep, deep trouble. And actually, we moved to Washington, D.C. in the early 1960s. And I came to Cedar Lane. I was a member of LRY here as a young high school student. I was here shortly after it was built. And our kids went to a wonderful Sunday school, and they loved it, and they participated in those programs, and it was a real blessing for our family to have Cedar Lane. And I'm just so glad to, in, as they say, my later years to be involved in such a vibrant, exciting, wonderful church with a minister who, a series of ministers who, in my view, knock it out of the park every Sunday. So Cedar Lane is a great part of this community, and it's a real pleasure to be a part of their community.
As we enter into this time of giving, I'd like to invite you to be present with me to some of our ancestors that were Unitarians and Universalists who were essential in forming our country and the freedoms that we enjoy today. The Reverend William Emerson was one of the very first military chaplains ever, and he's the great-granddaddy of Unitarian minister Ralph Waldo Emerson. And for our early religious ancestors, their participation in the Revolutionary War and the Civil War grew out of our faith and our call to see that there is freedom and equity for all. And we are still living into that work. Today, we're sharing the plate with the UULM, and Steve Buckingham is going to talk to us about how we're continuing that work of freedom with our giving and with our time, showing up during what is a crucial time in our legislative period.
5 weeks to go, but who's counting? Good morning, I'm Steve Buckingham, a lay community minister and chair of the UU Legislative Ministry of Maryland, and a member of the Frederick congregation. Normally I'd be singing in the choir this morning, but I'd rather be here with you all. Last year, in our 15th year, and as the voice of UU values in Annapolis, we promoted important measures in 7 areas to deal with climate change, criminal justice reform, economic justice, gun violence, healthcare, immigration, medical aid and dying. And this year, we will continue that effort. We helped raise the minimum wage again last year, Fight for 15 bill, helped pass 2 innovative measures in health care, one to facilitate enrollment in the Affordable Care Act, another to establish the nation's first prescription drug affordability board. We helped accelerate Maryland's movement to renewable energy, put funds into clean energy jobs. We put restrictions on the use of solitary confinement for pregnant and inmates and minors. We helped close a loophole in the background background check for loaned guns. We passed an expansion and improvement of the Maryland Dream Act for people who migrated here as children, and then this year we had to override the governor's veto of that bill. Not uncommon. After this session, another one which we hope will be successful, will refocus our efforts on the 2020 elections and help congregations throughout the state UU the vote with registration, education of voters and candidates, and getting out the vote. Like the UUA, we're a resource for that, and I look forward to working with your congregation and others in this and in neighboring states. We rely on your continuing support, moving our state towards becoming a just, compassionate, sustainable community. In the words of Dr. King, everyone must decide whether to walk in the light of creative altruism or in the darkness of destructive selfishness. And I want you to be the first in love. I want you to be the first in moral excellence. I want you to be the first in generosity. We appreciate your past generosity and welcome your continued gifts of time, effort, and money. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Today's offering will now be gratefully received.
Walk together and
don't you get weary. Walk together, children, and don't you get weary. Walk together, children, and don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Well, walk together, children.
together and
Don't you get weary. Walk together, children, and don't you get weary. Walk together, children, and don't you get weary. There's a great promised land. Keep on walking when you're happy. Keep on walking when you're loved. Keep on walking through that midnight.
Keep on walking down that long, long
road. You better walk together, children.
together and
Don't you get weary, walk together, children. And don't you get weary, walk together, children. And don't you get weary, there's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Listen now. Walking through the wilderness, burning desert sands. Sometimes it's the hardest thing to God was strength to stand. But on that far horizon where the golden sunset glows, we'll sit down by the land of Jordan where the milk and honey flows. So don't you be discouraged, children, don't you be afraid. Let's walk that straight and narrow way. Oh, walk together, children, and don't you get weary. Walk together, children, and don't you get weary. Walk together, children, and don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. Walk together now. Won't you get weary, child? Almost
In the words of Reverend Lynn Unger, through the work of our hands and the work of our lives, our love is made real. May we be grateful for all that we bring and share to make love real here at Cedar Lane.
Amen. I'd like to call into this space our ancestor, Toni Morrison, as I read words from Beloved, her novel. And I'd like to introduce you to one of her characters, Baby Suggs, Holy, a person, a woman who was enslaved and had to escape to the north to freedom. When the warm weather came, Baby Suggs, Holy, followed by every black man, woman, and child who could make it through, took her great heart to the clearing, a wide open space cut deep into the woods. Nobody knew for what. At the end of the path, only the deer and whoever cleared it knew in the first place. In the heat of every Saturday afternoon, she sat in the clearing while the people waited among the trees. After situating herself on a huge flat-sided rock, Baby Suggs bowed her head and prayed silently. The company watched her from the trees. They knew she was ready when she put her stick down. Then she shouted, "Let the children come!" And they ran from the trees toward her. "Let your mothers hear you laugh," she told them, and the woods rang. The adults looked on and could not help smiling. Then, let the grown men come. Let your wives and children see you dance, she told them, and ground life shuddered under their feet. Finally, she called the women to her. Cry, she told them, for the living and the dead just cry. And without covering their eyes, the women let loose. It started that way with the laughing children, dancing men, crying women, and then it got all mixed up. Women stopped crying and danced, men sat down and cried, children danced, women laughed, children cried until exhausted and riven, all and each lay about the clearing damp and gasping for breath. In the silence that followed, Baby Suggs Holy offered them up to her great big heart. She did not tell them to clean up their lives or go and sin no more. She did not tell them they were the blessed of the earth, its inheriting meek or its glory bound pure. She told them that the only grace they could have was the grace they could imagine. That if they could not see it, they would not have it. Here, she said, in this here place we flesh that weeps, laughs, flesh that dances on bare feet in the grass. Love it hard. Amen.
My own beliefs are in my songs.
The butcher, the baker,
The virtue within makes no difference what group I'm in. I am everyday people. Yeah, yeah. There is a blue one who can accept the green one for living with the big one. Try to be a skinny one. Different strokes for different folks, and so on and so on, and Scooby-Dooby-Dooby. Ooh, sha-sha.
we've gotta live together. I am no better, and neither are you.
We're all the same, whatever we do.
You love me, you hate me.
You know me, and then you can't figure out the bag I'm in. I am everyday people. Yeah, 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 yeah. There is a long hair that doesn't like the short. Never being such a rich one will not help the poor one. Different strokes for different folks, and so on and so on, and Scooby-Dooby-Dooby. Ooh, sha-sha.
We've gotta live together.
There is a yellow one that won't accept the black one, that won't accept the red one, that won't accept the white one. Different strokes for different folks, and so on and so on, and Scooby-Dooby-Dooby. Ooh, sha-sha. I am everyday people. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I am everyday people. Sing it, everybody. I
Thank you so much. You didn't know you had backup singers up here too, right? So I'm going to tell you about an everyday people today. The everyday people I'm going to tell you about is my Uncle Vic. The last time I spoke to my Uncle Vic was about 11 years ago when my stepfather died and he came to our house to share his condolences. He didn't have to visit. He and my aunt, my mother's sister, had been divorced for a few years by then. But that's just the type of guy he is. He sits with the grieving family because that's the right thing to do. I can make a direct link between my Uncle Vic and my current status as a ministerial candidate. His faith development and my faith development are literally woven together, kind of like over here. My Uncle Vic's daughter, Melissa, is 5 months younger than me, and for a good part of our childhood, we were best friends. Our childhood friendship meant that we slept over at each other's houses a lot. And whenever possible, I would try to sleep at Melissa's house because I knew that if I slept at Melissa's house, we would have to go to church on Sunday morning. No matter how late we stayed up giggling, we were going to church first thing, 7:30 a.m., no matter what. No negotiation. Empty bellies and sleep still in our eyes, we would get in the car and silently drive to the Catholic church named after St. Francis of Assisi. I never told anybody this, but I actually loved going to St. Francis. I loved the ritual. I loved memorizing the Lord's Prayer. I loved that I could ask God to forgive me my trespasses, and I could forgive those who had trespassed against me. I loved that regardless what else was going on in the world, the same exact thing would happen every single Sunday. And the Catholic worship is so embodied. You're always kneeling or getting up or standing up or sitting down, and it's almost like a Catholic sun salutation. And when the offering plate came around, my Uncle Vic always made sure we had a quarter to put in the basket. During the homily, which just seemed like unnecessary adult talk to me, I would try to decipher the pictures in the stained glass windows. I would stare at the Virgin Mary and I would will her to do something magical. Something to let me know that God was real. She never did. My Uncle Vic, however, did give me a gift I didn't receive from anybody else. The gift of worship. The gift of church as a safe and predictable space. He didn't know it, but because he gave me the gift of church, I watched my Uncle Vic. I noticed the other actions he took that were for him just the right thing to do. He mentored my brother. He took my cousin and me to visit ailing older aunts. He swam with us in the pool and cooked on the grill at cookouts. He never sat me down to have a talk like they see in sitcoms. He taught me by the way he lived. Now that I'm an adult about the same age as my Uncle Vic, when I was watching him, I'm aware of all the children who are watching me. Children at the churches I have served. Children at the school where my own kids go. Children at the library. Children at the checkout line at Target. What makes a multi-generational faith community so special is that we can be intentional about the way we create in a way that you can't be at the checkout line at Target. That's why we need to be good stewards of the gift of our multi-generational community. And we need to stretch ourselves in our giving to make sure that the gifts of Cedar Lane are available to future generations as well. You've spent some time with Tim thinking about what Cedar Lane means to you. So it is stewardship season. I'm going to ask you directly. Will you nourish this gift? Will you nourish this multi-generational faith community with your time and your treasure? Your financial commitment to our community has the potential to change the world. And I'm going to get back to that. But first, I want to talk a little bit more about my uncle. For a good part of my childhood, Uncle Vic was an important part of my faith tapestry. What is a faith tapestry, you ask? Tim talked about it a little bit, so I'm going to expand upon that. And I'm going to ask you all to expand upon that as well. So let's come together in a moment of meditation and imagine our faith tapestries. Take a few deep breaths and center yourself. Feel your body supported by your chair and your chair supported by the earth below. Soften your gaze or close your eyes if you are comfortable. Place your palms face up and let the energy of love surround you. On your next inhalation, picture the people who loved you into this space. Those who challenge you to be your best self. People who care for you, who support you, who empower you, and the people who expand your mind. Who are the people who have loved you into this space? Let the love of these people fill your soul. Let their love weave an invisible web of protection around you. This is your faith tapestry. Now, take a few deep breaths and come back to the room, holding on to that love that surrounded you during the meditation. And as you rejoin our space here, coming back to this place, feel free to take a moment and write down the names of the people who came to mind. Maybe drop them a note this week and let them know how important they are to you. Now, let's take a closer look at the people in your faith tapestry, the people who have loved you into this space. How many of the people in your tapestry were of a different generation? You could ask the same question about race or class or cultural background, but for today we're going to focus on generational connections. So when you imagine your faith tapestry, do you see the faces of people from many different generations? Another and more important question maybe is, who would put you in their faith tapestry? Are there people who are younger or older than you who would include you in their faith tapestry? Research shows that intergenerational caring relationships are vital to children and youth remaining involved in church life as they become young adults. In the book Sticky Faith, the author's research showed that a teenager is 30 to 50% more likely to remain engaged with the church if he or she has 5 or more adults invest time with them personally and spiritually. I would argue that everybody needs 5 or more people to invest time with them personally and spiritually to stay involved in the church. One way to quantify or think about this is, how many children in this faith community do you know by name? How many elders in this faith community do you know by name? Can you name the favorite book or sports team of the various people in this community outside of your peer group? Imagine if 5 people at St. Francis, the church I attended with my uncle, had taken the time to get to know me beyond the Catholic ritual greeting of peace be with you and also with you. I might be Catholic today. At the very least, I would probably have remained engaged in the church during my teenage years, which is when I stopped attending. One person cannot shoulder the responsibility of faith formation of a child without help. Parents need help. They need aunts and uncles, and they also need you and you and you to help form their children's faith. And you need help forming your faith too. Faith formation is truly a lifelong process, as this image shows. We start out caught, which means we have to go to church, and when we're at church, we're taught. Then we might buy into it a little bit, and then we keep looking. We keep searching for deeper truths. And I can tell you firsthand that the children I've engaged with in church settings have regularly left me speechless, awestruck, and inspired. We have formed each other's faith in a reciprocal relationship. It's what Joy Berry, a religious educator colleague, calls wrought faith, and that's at the bottom here. So you can see she's got people with different tools, and then a hammer and an anvil. And what this image is showing is that you can't do it alone. You cannot form your faith in isolation. And being in wrought faith goes throughout the spectrum. It happens until we're no longer here, until we pass away, and maybe beyond. So here's a brief example of what that reciprocal faith formation relationship looked like for me. I was telling the story of Henry Heights to Fitchburg. Has anybody read that story? I was telling it to a group of kindergarten through 3rd graders, and in the story, Henry Thoreau hikes from Boston to Fitchburg, and along the way, he communes with nature, he picks and eats some berries, he wades in a lake, and at the same time, his friend earns money to take the train from Boston to Fitchburg. His friend chops wood for someone, paints a fence, and cleans some horses in order to earn the money. And at the end of the story, I asked the children, I wonder which one of these men is a Unitarian. I thought I knew the answer because it was obviously Henry David Thoreau, right? But one little girl, she shot up her hand and she said, no, the other guy's also a Unitarian. He helped all of these people. Look at all of the good things he did. In that moment, my faith was wrought. The little girl helped me hammer out, so to speak, my idea of what it meant to be a UU. We, our faith, our country, our world need you to commit to being in an intentional multi-generational community because it's an act of social justice. And part of that commitment is actually a financial commitment to fortify our community, and especially our most vulnerable members for years to come as we work to create a more just world. If you look around, it's easy to see that society is very age segregated. This age segregation only benefits those who profit from divisiveness and hate. If we don't know one another, we cannot defend one another. We are less likely to stand up for one another. It becomes easy to think of a school shooting as something that happens out there if you don't know anybody who's in school. It becomes easy to think about making cuts to Medicare if you don't know anybody who's relying on it for medication to stay alive. As the dear Mr. Rogers once asked, how can older and younger people respond to each other if they have no experiences together? How can older and younger people respond to one another if they have no experiences together? In his book on tyranny, Lessons from the 20th Century, Timothy Snyder offers 20 ways to resist the recent surge of authoritarianism that has entered American politics. Number 12 on his list of advice is make eye contact and small talk. He states, people who were living in fear of repression remembered how their neighbors treated them. A smile, a handshake, or a word of greeting, banal gestures in a normal situation, took on great significance. He goes on to say, in the most dangerous of times, those who escape and survive generally know people they can trust. Having old friends is the politics of last resort, and making new ones is the first step towards change. So I ask you, where's the one place in the week when we can commit the revolutionary act of building and maintaining multi-generational relationships, of having old friends and making new ones? Where could that be? Right here, yes, in church on Sunday mornings. When you volunteer in a Sunday school class, you are committing an act of resistance against authoritarianism. When you intentionally plan a multi-generational potluck, you are committing an act of resistance. When you organize a game of kickball and play by the rules, you are committing an act of resistance. When you greet someone by name who is from a different generation, you are committing an act of resistance. When you ask someone under 30 to serve on the board, you are committing an act of resistance. And when you make a financial pledge to this institution that is daily living out its mission of making love work, you are committing an act of resistance against authoritarianism. All of our social justice work doesn't have to involve going to marches or calling our congressperson, though those are very, very important. Doing the work of wrought faith, of deepening, strengthening, and enriching your faith tapestry is also social justice work. And it is the most important work you can do today. It is the most important work you have done today. So now I invite you to rise as you are willing and able to sing hymn number 1018, Come and Go With Me.
There'll be justice. Where I'm bound, there'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. singing. Where I'm bound. One more time, come and go with me.
Please remain standing for our closing words, written by Reverend Ashley Horan. You are loved beyond belief. You are enough. You are precious. Your work and your life matter. And you are not alone. You are a part of a great cloud of witnesses, living and dead, who have insisted that this beautiful, broken world of ours is a blessing worthy of both deep gratitude and fierce protection. Our ancestors and our descendants are beckoning us, compelling us onward towards greater connection, greater compassion, greater commitment to one another and to this earth. Together, we are resilient and resourceful enough to say yes to that call, to make our life's work in 1,000 different ways, knowing that we can do no other than to bind ourselves more tightly together and throw ourselves into the holy work of showing up again and again to be a part of building the world of which we dream, but which we have not yet seen. May it be so. Go in peace. Amen.